Once upon a time, there was a large and generally prosperous flock of sheep. Oh, true, it wasn't necessarily the most equitable flock, for the large white variety in general got to the feed trough first. Even among the white sheep, it was predominantly the males who decided who got what, in which order. For others of the darker, sometimes horned varieties, life wasn't so easy, but still generally better than some other flocks without green pastures or proficient shepherds and sheepdogs. Many of the dominant members of the prosperous flock ignored or even denied news of the rampant ravaging of other flocks, even neighboring flocks, by the packs of wolves that flourished in the land. They felt safe and disconnected from the plight of other flocks, or even those in their own that lived on the edges, surviving on what grass, feed, and water left them after the dominant sheep had their fill. A primary reason for the relative safety and prosperity of the flock came from a system of government established by much earlier generations of foresheep, from the days when they had decided to no longer be an obscure branch of another flock of dominant sheep. They had created something called the Bleep of Rights and other long-pondered documents, creating a system capable of empowering the sheep to select their own leadership, including methods for progress and self-repair when flock governance became dysfunctional. That system included the regular selection of a new and fresh shepherd, elected by the entire flock, who was responsible for execution of the flock's laws, rules, policies, and procedures, including the vital responsibility of ensuring defense from the marauding packs of wolves. For generations, from the very beginning, white male shepherds had always served, a fact that seemed divinely destined to many of the dominant white sheep. One day, the flock did something never achieved before. A black shepherd was elected. A sense of hope grew among the majority of the flock, not only among those breeds dark in color or with rainbow highlights, but also among the many white sheep. The domineering sheep were by no means the majority. Even amongst the white, there were those that felt the flock never truly flourished until they all flourished. "Fake," some dominant white males called. "He must prove he is truly one of us, or he cannot rule and protect us." So the black shepherd did just that, again and again. Documents, witnesses, life history, there was no doubt he was a native born to the flock. "Fake," they continued to call. "He's not truly one of us." In time, the majority of the flock heard the true message behind the words. Only white was allowed to flourish, to be part of the dominant class. The shepherd ruled wisely and well, generally improving the condition of the flock and its relations with other flocks, despite strong opposition from a cadre of white sheep. His time could not last forever. As the time came to elect a new shepherd, a female led the field as potential successor to the black shepherd. This created a crisis for the dominant whites such as they had never faced before. Right to dominate had become the core of their sense of self. For a female to rule? That threatened their dominance in their very homes, their very lives. When a glaring white opponent stepped into the limelight, they had their champion. "I'll make our flock great again," he yelled. "Yes," the dominant white males answered. "But he has a long muzzle and sharp teeth," some secretly thought. "But he's white and he's male." "Yes!" they called all the louder. A wolf from across the water had watched it all. He had already deeply entrenched himself as leader of the flock in his own land, and wolves now ruled, feasting as they wished on the flock, able to hide the mayhem behind lies and fabrications, or just plain not caring because they felt the flock was powerless to do anything. He and the white wolf were already chums, and they both dreamed of replicating his success amongst the democratic flock across the water. Lies and fabrications could be shared, duplicated, and modified, and so the wolves worked together. "But he has teeth, and fur instead of fleece, some confused members of the white flock pointed out, but the woman candidate's opposition. Fake news was the response from the white wolf, a response fully and adamantly supported by the dominant whites of the flock. The distant wolf drew upon his system of creating and sharing false information, building believable fabrications of seeming news stories, and sharing freely of the unpoliced and relatively new communications channel called the interfleece. Any possible flaw in the female candidate was identified and magnified, and when that wasn't enough, new ones were fictionalized and proliferated. In the end, the white wolf won, and the feasting began. More wolves in shepherd's clothing were appointed by the white wolf to the position of sheepdogs, with power over the flock's education, its environment, its health, its defense, all aspects of its life. At first, the dominant white sheep serving in the legislative branch of governments were thrilled at the sense of power that came with the dominant leader celebrating the power of white and male. The wolves fed first on the outsiders, for whom they were able to paint an image of association with wolf packs and other flocks, hiding the fact that, in reality, they were sheep, striving to find safety from the slaughter. Then the wolves created scenarios allowing them to vilify and feed on the poorest of the flock, and still the dominant white sheep supported the new leader. Slowly, it began to dawn on the legislative sheep that, without the support of the entire flock, they would lose their power. In the new atmosphere under the white wolf, there were those among the flock who secretly dreamed of being wolves. Their longing for power included collecting the tools created by the flock intended for protection from wolves. The leaders feeding freely on the foreigners and the poor empowered those pseudo-wolves. Feeling powerless, these wolf wannabes sought to prove that they did have power, and so they turned to the most vulnerable of the flock, the lambs. And they went to where the lambs gathered to learn how to grow into intelligent and productive sheep. And so, the lambs were slaughtered. It happened once, twice, multiple times. It happened once too often. Some lambs, brave lambs, realized they must become their own sheepdogs. Finally, the increasingly dissatisfied flock had a banner to follow, voices to lead the effort to correct the wrongs being done. One tenacious sheepdog had not gone away. The one responsible for tracking the increasingly obvious trail of blood and gore left behind by the white wolf, his pack, and his ally across the waters. The story is not finished. The outcome, undetermined. The flock has hope, for, after all, the 4 sheep did create a system that allowed for self-repair when flock governance became dysfunctional.